All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kudash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And there's a video, I guess it's a somewhat of a re or a response slash add-on ish to this video that was done by the elder Yashawamba, titled "The Book of Haggai and How It Applies to Today." Okay, in parentheses, get off your ass and build. And yeah, great video. As you can see, I got into it. I haven't finished it yet, but definitely go watch it and be edified. But yeah, as I was listening to the video, he was making some great connections and points from the what was happening at that time. All right, of Haggai and Zechariah and Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest and all of them. Okay, to this time, because everything is spiritual. Okay, you have literal things that happen, but at the end of the day, there are some things that are literal, but they're also symbolic. And they can, we can see how the things that are taking place on the earth today, are represented also by certain things that happened in the past when you look at it through a spiritual lens. Okay, now at this time, um, you had the Babylonians that had basically come in. The Lord raised them up, as Jeremiah was prophesying, about them. The Lord raised them up under Nebuchadnezzar, really his father, but under him, they basically laid siege to Jerusalem, and eventually they destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the walls as well as the temple. Okay, and they burnt, the books. They took the vessels out and all of that stuff. Um, and that's where you have Daniel. He was taken captive. Ezekiel, all of these individuals, and they were taken captive to Babylon. Now, in process of time, after the Lord had Babylon get taken down, okay, I believe at that time Cyrus, the Lord raised up Cyrus, okay, which was the king of Persia, or as they call it, the Achaemenid Empire. And under Cyrus's orders, basically they took over Babylon. All right, they didn't necessarily have a giant war, but they basically infiltrated and took it over. And when you read in the secular history, afterwards Cyrus basically gave that region of Babylon, all right, or Chaldea as they call it, to Darius the Mede. Okay. Um, Now, long story short, as in due time, the Lord put the spirit on Cyrus, which Isaiah even prophesied about. Let's go to that real quick. All right, the Lord put the spirit on Cyrus. Let's go. I think it's Isaiah the 45th chapter. All right, here we go. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 1. And it says, "Thus saith the Lord Yahweh to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut." All right, now I want to get to the part I believe this mentions him, but I think it's actually in the 44th chapter. It should be right around the ending. It talks about what the Lord was going to raise up Cyrus to do. Okay. Um, all right, now this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 4. Now, in verse 45, or in chapter 45, verse 1, when it mentions Cyrus, the Lord's anointed, it doesn't mean that Cyrus is an Israelite, or Cyrus is of any. Cyrus is still a heathen, okay, but anointed meaning that he was chosen for the purpose of what we're about to read here. Okay. This is Isaiah 44 and 28. It says, "That saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd." Now, Isaiah, when you look in the timeline, Isaiah was long before Cyrus. Okay, Cyrus came up into power somewhere around 550 or so BC. You know, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere along there, came up into power. Not was born, but came up into power. But Isaiah was, if I'm not mistaken, around the seven somewhat BC. But let's actually look that up. Isaiah. Yeah, they put him in the 8th century BC, so right around seven something. Let's tap here. Here we go. So we have here, it says, the traditional view is that all 66 chapters of the book of Isaiah were written by one man, Isaiah, possibly in two periods between 740 BC and 686 BC. But nevertheless, the 8th century BC, they place him right around the seven something BC, which is a good while before Cyrus comes on the scene, or at least over 100 years. Okay, so Isaiah, this prophecy here that Isaiah made concerning Cyrus, all right, through the Spirit of the Lord, mentioning Cyrus by name, all right, going to show you that, you know, the scriptures, they stand, all right, the prophecy stands, given that it's history now. But as it says, that saith of Cyrus, Isaiah 44 and 28, he is my shepherd, and shall perform all my pleasure, even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. Now, at this time of Isaiah, the temple had not been destroyed. Okay, so that goes to show you that this was a prophecy, and when Cyrus came on the scene, he did give a decree for us to return back to our land and to go and rebuild the temple. Okay, and as we went there, as a matter of fact, let me start off with the book of Ezra, the 4th chapter, and I'll make reference back to this. But pretty much as we went back to rebuild, okay, you had, you know, Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest and the rest that returned to go, basically the anybody that the Spirit of the Lord had stirred up to go back and rebuild the temple, they went. Given at this point you had Israelites that were living in the territories that the Babylonian Empire had conquered, which now became the territories of the Medo-Persian Empire, or the Achaemenid Empire. So you had Israelites that had settled, all right, in Babylon and neighboring regions, that had houses and families and all of these things. And so some of them did not actually want to go back to Jerusalem to go and rebuild, because the rebuilding process happened in you know, in I guess 2 steps on a broad scale. We first had to rebuild the temple, and then we had to rebuild the walls. Okay, and during the rebuilding of the walls is when Nehemiah comes in. All right, a little after, you know, and he basically heads that. And even then, it was a turbulent time, because I believe it talks about how at one point we had to have one hand on our weapon and another hand building, because our enemies or our adversaries would basically try to attack. Okay, but nevertheless, when we went back and we started to rebuild the temple, all right, Ezra 4:1, it says, now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord Yahweh their God, or the Lord Yahweh power of Israel, then they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Ashur, which brought us up hither. Now, why are they mentioning this? Because when you go back a little back further, all right, when the northern kingdom were still in the land, you had the time of the Assyrians. One of the main Assyrian kings who did this, even though it didn't start with him, but he did this, was Ashuradan, or Asarhaddon. And basically what they would do is they would deport you from your land into a foreign land, and then they would import heathens into your land, which would be like basically what happened to you, they would do to heathens. and this would basically reduce the rebellion, because now you're in a foreign land, you don't know the people there, you don't know the customs, you don't really know the terrain or the area, so it would be difficult to gather up and try to rebel. All right, and an example of this was Tobit. Okay, Tobit was a part of those that got deported out of their land and taken into the land of the Medes. That's why the book of Tobit takes place. The setting is in the land of the Medes and around that area. Okay, when he sends his son Tobias to go get the money, and Raphael comes in, Tobit tells you that in the first chapter. Okay, but returning back here, so Asurdon was one of the kings that did that. And so that's why these heathens were saying that we do worship your God, because when they got imported into that land, they were doing all manner of filthiness and abominations, and the Lord sent lions among them. It's in the book of Second Kings. I forget the exact chapter, but the Lord sent lions among them to basically rip them up. And so they requested, and then I believe a Levite was sent over there to go and teach them the ways of the land, that they might, change their ways, and the lions could stop ripping them to shreds. And so after doing that, in process of time, they basically, I believe they also built a temple in Mount Gerizim or so, and they started doing these things. So generation after generation after generation, all right, they basically tried to replace the northern tribe, try to act as though they were Israelites. Okay, and that's why when they came here, they said, "We do seek your God as ye do." All right, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Asurdon, because going back to that point was when they were taught, even though they were heathens, how to live in the land so that they wouldn't be killed by those lions anymore. But nevertheless, they were still heathen, so they had no part in this. Right. So it says here, since the days of Assuradon, which king of Ashur, which brought us up hither. But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our power, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, hath commanded us. Now, I'm bringing all this out, and the title is Why Are We So Important? Because tying it all in, the just like back then, they went back to rebuild the physical temple, all right, the second temple. In this time, we are building the third temple, which is a spiritual temple. Okay, the third temple is really the elect, the members of the elect, all right, of the nation of Israel. It's not a physical, actual temple that you're gonna put brick on brick to put together here and put together there and put together there. Okay. And as a matter of fact, let's get this real quick. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 18. It says, And I say unto thee, and this is the Lord speaking unto the apostle Peter, Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Okay. And let's look up that word. I've looked it up before, but I believe it means rock or something like that. Petros. All right, there we go. A rock or a stone. Okay. Um, there you go. Okay, so as it says, upon this rock will I build my church. All right, which now what that church represents who? The elect. Okay, being gathered together and restored. Amos 9 and 11, the house of David being rebuilt as in the days of old, and it also represents that third temple. Okay, so in this time, what are we doing? We're building, but we're not actually physically putting stones and this and that together. But the modern way of us building is by doing these lessons, right? We edify, okay, the building up of the church and the edification, and then starting with our elders and apostles and their elders going out there in the highways and byways. That was the spirit stirring them up to start building. Okay, and as they started as they started building, the Lord stirred up even more spirits, okay, to come out and join and put our hands to the plow and join the labor and join this building. Okay, that the completion of the building, or that the building may be complete. Okay, now just like back then, we're reading here in the book of Ezra, the 4th chapter, you had during this building process, you had heathens, you had other nations and other people that tried to join us in this building, but we told them no, they have no parts in here. They cannot be a part of this. Just like today, you have so people look at it as oh, you guys are a hate group or you guys are this because you're exclusive, but we're supposed to be exclusive, and that's why we say this is not for everybody, right? Well, guess what? In verse 3, what did Zerubbabel and Jeshua say when the those that had no part to build with us came to try and build with us? What did they say? They said, "Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house onto our power." Right? It says, but we ourselves together will build onto the Lord God of Israel." All right. And in a sense, that's what we say now, because this isn't for everybody. This is only for the elect. So we're not looking for everybody. And we certainly are not looking for heathens. Okay. So going on now, what happened when Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the fathers told them that no, they couldn't join and partake of it? What did they do? Verse 4 says, "Then the people of the land weakened the hands of the people of Judah and troubled them in building." So it wasn't a easy, straightforward thing to just, oh yeah, let's just go and let's just build the temple and so on and so forth. Okay, there was what troubling times, as it says in Daniel the 9th chapter, perilous times, troublous, not perilous, in troublous times. Right, verse 5 it says, "And hired counselors against them to what? To frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia." Okay, so because you had Cyrus, and then you had the next king after Cyrus was Cambyses, the second, which was Cyrus's son, and then after him was Bardia, all right, or Smerdis, which was some historians say that it was the actual, because that Cambyses the second had a brother, all right, which was Bardia, and some say that he was the actual one who ruled. Some say that he was killed, and somebody that posed as him took his place. But nevertheless, after Cambyses came Bardia, and after Bardia came Darius. Okay, this Darius over here. Now the reason it says frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia, because after Cyrus had died and his son came into power, his son Cambyses, which here they refer to him as Ahasuerus, right? But when you see Ahasuerus here, typically you'll think of the book of Esther, right? The husband of Esther, because he's also referred to as Ahasuerus, but there are different Persian kings that are referred to by this name Ahasuerus. All right, and it's not always talking about the same person. All right, so this Ahasuerus is really referring to Cambyses the second, the son of Cyrus. And as it says, "And in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem," because this is a time long before Xerxes. Okay, and you can tell when you click on the tools for the blue letter, if you go to Bibles, or sorry, if you go to dictionaries and you look up, you can even look up in the Eastern's Bible Dictionary, but if you look up Ahasuerus, that name is going to come up and it's going to tell you, right, that there are three kings designated by this name in Scripture. The first being the father of Darius the Mede, mentioned in Daniel 9:1. And that Ahasuerus was talking about, like it says, this was probably Cyaxares the first, known by this name in profane history, the king of Media and conqueror of Nineveh. The second is the king mentioned in Ezra 4 and 6, which we just read, probably the Cambyses of profane history, the son and successor of Cyrus. All right, and then it says here, the son of Darius Hystaspes, the king named in the book of Esther. He ruled over the kingdoms of Persia and Media and Babylonia, and this was Xerxes. Okay, so though it says Ahasuerus, there are three kings, as it says here, that are designated to that name in Scripture. And so in the book of Ezra, in this verse at least is referring to Cambyses, the son of Cyrus. All right. So during his time and during the time of Bardia, who reigned after him, we were not able to continue building. The building was halted. So what happened? Jake went back, all right, back to Babylon, back to their area. And when you read in the book of Ezra, the first chapter, as you keep on reading, you'll see that there comes a point, I believe I believe it's First Esdras, Salaki, I think it's First Esdras, the third chapter. It talks about how there came a day when there were the king's guardsmen basically said, "Hey, let's put forth like this riddle and see whoever has the wisest saying, and then whoever has the wisest saying can get like a reward or a request granted from the king." And then it goes into the one who says wine is the strongest, right? The other one says the king is the strongest, and then the other one said that women are the strongest, but above that, the truth is the strongest. And that third person was Zerubbabel who said that, and his was counted as the wisest saying. And so Darius asked him, what did he want? And then he said, oh, well, during the days of Cyrus, we were allowed to build the temple, but it was halted, and so we want to basically go back and continue building it. And so that's when things started. Darius gave us permission to basically go back and continue that building. So that's why it says it was halted even unto the reign of Darius, because that's when we went back to continue building, all right, and eventually finish that building of the temple. Now, in this day and age, of course, when you're comparing things spiritually, it's not going to be exactly what happened then is happening right now. All right. But just like as they were building back then, as it says, they hired counselors against them. They troubled their hands. They frustrated them in the building. Well, that's what you see going on today. That's why you have your vocab Malones. Okay. You have agents that are sent. You have police officers that come around and act as though they're just doing their job when they're sent, okay, to try and frustrate our building. Okay, and now the form of us building is by what? Going out and teaching, because the teaching is what's waking up. Okay, the elect is activating them, is waking them up, and is gathering them. Okay, the word is going out and is gathering them together, and each one is a piece. All right, in this temple that's being rebuilt. Okay, so just like back then they were troubled, right now we are troubled, but that's not going to stop us, just like it didn't stop them back then. Okay, now going into the book of Haggai, I'm not going to actually go into the whole book. You can watch the video that the elder Yashawamba did. He goes into the book of Haggai, I believe the first chapter, and makes the connecting points. Okay, but some adding on to some of the points that he made, just like back then you had the prophet, the Lord raised up the prophet Haggai and Zechariah, and they were contemporaries, meaning they lived at the same time period, and he had to raise them up and put the spirit on them to basically go up and put the spirit on Jake, and rouse them up to continue the building. Because eventually what happened? Jake started getting lazy. They started slacking. They became lukewarm. They didn't want to, they started to focus more on their lives than what the will of the Lord was, than what the request of the Lord was. Okay, so now going back to why I titled the video, "Why Are We So Important?" is because of the same reason Haggai and Zechariah, which were the prophets, were so important back then. Because the Lord used them to stir up the fathers and the rest of the Israelites to continue the building and to finish building. And so that's what we're doing now. Now, of course, we're also building, but a part of it is we're also stirring up that spirit in Jake to build. As the Lord said, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. So what are we doing? We're just like even Apostle Torah. A lot of brothers will give you a testimony as to how, years ago, the reason a lot of brothers started going out was because they kept hearing him basically telling them, yo, go out and teach, go out and teach, go out and teach. Just like Haggai and Zechariah were basically getting on Israel back here, telling them, look, you can't just sit your ass on there or sit your ass down and build your house and take care of yourself, Meanwhile, the house of the Lord is desolate. Meanwhile, there's work to do. And that's why we're constantly, putting out videos and constantly, edifying and serving the Lord, because there's work to do. Okay. And we got to keep on working. We got to keep on building. So every lesson that we do that is edifying, that is building you up when you listen to it, okay, is a contribution to this building in this time, which is important. Okay. And ultimately, and that's why in Revelation 7 it says that the destruction is not supposed to come until all the servants are sealed in their head. Okay. Then the building is complete, then the destruction can come. Okay, so like I said, it's all spiritual. It's not exact this here, but when you read these scriptures, the history, the things that took place, you can see how some of these some of these events that happen physically are happening spiritually now, and why it's so important, the job that we are doing. Okay, back then they could see the physical temple, and it being built up and everything, but in this time, like I've said before, the work that we're doing is much more important than we even realize. To us, we know what we have to do, and of course we're doing it with passion, with zeal, with fervency, but even we don't know the full extent of the importance of this ministry, because the Lord hasn't fully opened up everything. He has revealed things here and there, but when the time comes, when the Lord says, all right, your job is done, now let me show you what you were actually doing. Let me show you the effects. Let me allow you to reap the fruits of your labor. That's when you're going to fully see and understand what you were actually involved in. What is this ministry about? It's more than just, okay, well, when you go out to the highways and byways and you have a garment on and you're teaching, yes, to the world is like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, oh yeah, just going to camp. But going to camp is not just going to camp. Okay. That is you coming to the altar to present your body as a living sacrifice. So every time you go out there, that is a sacrifice you're bringing to the Lord. So when you go from, you first come into the truth, you're excited, you come there with passion, your mind is right, your mind is perfect towards the Lord, you're focused, you're ready to go. Your sacrifice is pure, it's unblemished, it's nice. But in due time, when you start to get, tired, and you start to get lazy, and I mean, of course, we're all men, but when you start to get complacent, you start to get lukewarm. Now you don't want to go out. Now you go out every, whenever you want to, right? You go out every 2 weeks, you go out every month, you go out every 3 months. What happens when you get there to the altar, the spiritual altar? Your sacrifice is blemished. It's not the Lord doesn't want it. He doesn't desire it. And so eventually he's going to kick you away from the altar, and he's going to do it in a way where you won't be able to resist. Because once he takes the spirit off of you, he doesn't have to physically force you not to come to the altar. You won't want to come there in the first place. And in that case, you can't even resist it. Going to show you the fear and the power of the Lord. Okay, but that's why it's so important to matter of fact, let me get this in the book of, let's see, fervent and spirit. Yep, this is the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 11. And see, the work that we do in the script is likened onto so many things. It's likened onto plowing. It's likened onto planting. It's likened onto harvesting. Okay, onto building, onto running a business. It's likened onto so many things. Okay. So as it says, Romans chapter 12, verse 11, it says, not slothful in business. Right? So what is the business? The work that we are doing. And who is the business owner? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Okay, the Most High owns the business, and Yahweh Shai runs the business. And we are workers in the business. You see? And our job is to work. And your job, if you're not employed, is to get employed, so that at the end of the job, you can get paid. Right? So when you are working, you are not supposed to be slothful in business. Because what happens to a slothful worker? You get fired. So as it says, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. And how do you serve the Lord? By doing his will, doing his work, doing it with fervency, with passion, with sincerity. As a matter of fact, um, not let me see, constraints. The Apostle Peter said this. See if I can find it. And because when you get employed with to work for the Lord, there's an employee starter package that comes with it. You're protected, you're taken care of. There's that hedge is around you. Okay, the Lord provides for you, he looks out for you, he makes sure that you're fed, that you're taken care of, because you are working for the Lord. Why do you think certain jobs that you get, they offer benefits? They offer healthcare or dental or vision, or they offer these things because it is to keep their employees in top condition so that the employees can perform in top condition for them, right? A good employee, a healthy employee does healthy work. So the Lord has benefits and packages when you come to serve him. Of course, as it says, you got to prepare your soul for temptation. But that's when you first start at a job, certain jobs they'll put you on, like, it's almost like a probationary period ish, right? Sometimes it's a month, sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 3 months, and they're watching you very closely during that time. They're training you, they have you shadowing people, and that's to test you and see. Sometimes they might throw you on this assignment, they might have you go here. What the hell? That's not what it said in my job description. But they got you doing all these things because they're trying you to see, okay, are you a solid employee that we want to keep, or are you somebody that slipped through the cracks and now we want to send you back? So guess what? The Lord does that. That's why Sirach, the second chapter, is written that when you come to serve the Lord, prepare your soul for temptation, because you're going to be tested. And then it tells you how wisdom will try you and take you by all these different ways, and dread you with her discipline. But after that probation period, after the Lord says, all right, I can trust this person, I can open up the secrets to this person, then the secrets get opened up to you. And that is why the scriptures tell you, I believe it's in the book of Hebrews, that it is impossible for one who has tasted of the goodness of being enlightened and then left to be reconciled back, like a dog returning back to his vomit. So it says here, that's like certain jobs, if you get terminated, they don't hire you back. So it says, this is the book of First Peter chapter 5 verse 2. It says, feed the flock of God which is among you, right? So it's also likened on to being a shepherd and feeding the sheep. But it says, feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint. Now let's look up the word constraint. So feeding the flock, right now we're feeding them with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding by teaching. See, constraint, it says by force or constraint. So you're not supposed to be doing this work for like you're forced. Don't, it says what? Not by constraint, but willingly. So you feeding the flock, you taking the oversight, you being a builder, doing the work, it should be willingly. You shouldn't feel like you're forced to do this. If you feel like you're forced to do this, right? You feel like your camp leader or whatever, a brother or elder is going to get on you or curse you out if you don't do this. Guess what? You're not going to last. You know why? Because you're only doing it because you know that if you don't, whoever it is going to curse you out. What happens if that person stops? What happens if that person's not there anymore? What's going to make you continue? You did a video once a week because you didn't want those that were over you to say, yo, what happened to the videos you were doing? Right? What happened to you? What are you doing? What's going on? So if that person is not there anymore, you're not going to do that video because now you don't have a reason. Your reason was because you didn't want him on your ass, but now he's not there. Now you're not going to continue in the work. So you're not supposed to do it by constraint. You're supposed to do this work willingly. What happens when an employee does not want to work at their employment or at their job anymore? They become unproductive. And then it becomes one of two things. They either quit or they get fired. That's what happens when an employee is working and they feel like they're doing it by force or they're being constrained. If you feel like you're doing something that you don't want to do by force, you're not gonna last in that. Okay? You're not gonna last. Because especially this truth, there's moments when you have to draw out a certain level of motivation and determination and energy from within, really from the spirit of the Lord, in order to keep going. Because there's certain low moments you hit that if you're not careful, it could end you. And in that time, if you are not willingly, if you don't willingly want to be here, if you don't desire to serve the Lord, if you don't have an anchor, a sincere reason for doing this work, you won't find that drive in your low moment. And if you don't find that drive, you're done. See, but when you willingly want to do it, you're passionately here, when you have a goal in mind, your head is set on straight, your focus is solid like a laser. Guess what? Even when you have low moments, you want to do this. So you're gonna intrinsic motivation. Look that up. You're gonna motivate you. You're gonna find a reason to get back up and do what you got to do. You do a video, it doesn't save. You do it again, it doesn't save. Now the third time you're doing the video, but guess what? You're still gonna do that video anyway because you're not doing it by constraint. You're doing it willingly. Now, if you're well, I try to do it, it didn't work. All right, whatever. I have an excuse. You're not supposed to be looking for excuses. When you're in this truth and you're serving the Lord, you're not supposed to be looking for excuses. Oh, I didn't do it because I got off work late. All right, well, that's a good excuse. I know I can give that. Who are you going to give that excuse to? Guess what? When all hell breaks loose, when the chariots come and you don't get beamed up, even you wouldn't accept that excuse from yourself. The future, think about it. Think about it. If you have an excuse, right? Whatever it is, for not doing the work of the Lord, and because of this excuse, you end up not getting delivered. What would your future self tell you if you had told your future self that excuse? Hey, bro, I didn't do the work because I don't know, man. I just wasn't feeling it, man. The spirit, I was just tired. This happened. This happened. What do you think the future self, who's getting ready to hit, if the future you was there on the day of Yahweh return and looked up and saw a missile about to hit him and realized that they weren't going to get delivered because they didn't do enough, and then they had a chance to come back in time and see the current you, do you think that future you coming back in time to see the current you is going to want to hear that excuse? Nah, man, my stomach was kind of crazy. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it, so I'll go next week. I can't push this week. I'll push next week. You think the future is going to hear that when he just saw a missile coming for his ass because he in the past his stomach hurt. So whatever the case is, he ain't gonna want to hear that. So you got to if you have an excuse, if you're looking for excuses, oh, I can't go to camp because of this. Oh, I didn't do this because of that. I didn't do that because of that. You got to stop and ask yourself, would that excuse work if it was a badass chick I just met? I've been wanting this chick for years, and I just met her, and I get this one window of opportunity. Somebody will walk 10 miles in a snowstorm for that, but won't walk 2 miles and then find weather to get to camp. You got to ask yourself, are your priorities set on straight? Right? Would this excuse that you have be valid if this was a fire chick that you were trying to go link up with? She telling you, nah, if you're not here today, then this ain't gonna work. Would this same excuse work? Would you say, I just got off of work, I'm tired? You would see that text, and it doesn't matter what tiredness you had, that shit is gonna convert to energy. It's gonna convert to potential energy, and then it's gonna convert to kinetic energy. And here your ass is starting to call back up again with the GPS set to Sasha's crib. Right? But when it comes to doing the work of the Lord, then the energy is gone. But now, is Sasha gonna get you on a chariot? Is Sasha gonna swoop in and deliver you from the missiles? Is Sasha gonna feed you during the famine? When you're so hungry, your stomach is eating itself. Do you think you're gonna be interested in Sasha's crib at that time? No. But you know what's gonna get you on a chariot? You put in all that diligence, right? Give diligence to make your calling and election sure. So don't look for excuses. As the scriptures say, do the work of the Lord willingly, not by constraint. Nobody's forcing you to be here. You got to be the one forcing yourself to be here. And if you can't do that for yourself, well. So as it says, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Let's actually look up that word ready. Okay, of a ready mind. We have protheomos. I'm not a Greek, so bear with me. It says willing, right, with a larceny. Now let's look that word up. A larceny. What's like here? Definition. So the word larceny says brisk and cheerful readiness. Let's read some synonyms. Eagerness, willingness, readiness, enthusiasm, liveliness, speed, haste. You see that? You see these pictures right here? Right there. Intense and eager enjoyment, interest, or approval. Just like when you see that free, she got the free crypt text, that eagerness jumps up, right? Well, guess what? When you are teaching the word of the Lord, you got to have a willing mind, a ready mind, a mind with a larceny, eager, enthusiasm, okay, to serve the Lord. That's how you got to be. So I'm gonna read it one more time and then I'll close it here. As a matter of fact, let me actually read this. This is and Shalom Yahweh Bashem Yahushai Brakatham. This is I Walam a war, Proverbs 26:13. The slothful man saith, there is a lion in the way, a lion is in the streets. There you go. There's the excuse. You know, the slothful man saith that. Are you a slothful man? Or are you a man of a ready mind to serve the Lord? Because if you are ready to serve the Lord is going to be ready to take care of you. And that's just that. Okay, so anyway, actually, let me read this again. This is the book of First Peter, chapter 5, verse 2. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. Okay? Neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being ensamples to the flock. So don't be an example of a lazy shepherd, a lazy builder. You don't want to be. You can do it, but you don't want to. You're saying this. You're trying to justify why you shouldn't, turning excuses into valid laws. And no. That's not a good example. Okay. So anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rucha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.